In what may become one of the biggest child molesting cases ever on record, 7 nursery school teachers were arraigned today on more than 100 counts of child molestation.
The accused include the preschool owner, 76-year-old Virginia McMartin, her daughter, and 2 grandchildren.
Which has shocked much of Southern California and caused a lot of parents to worry about the safety of their children.
Preschoolers have been exploited.
Could it be your child?
The McMartin Preschool was a prestigious preschool in Manhattan Beach, California, founded by Virginia McMartin in 1956. Her daughter Peggy and grandchildren Ray and Peggy Ann all taught at the school. The school was held in high regard and had many applicants to the point that there was a waiting list just for children to get in. That all came crashing down when Judy Johnson accused Ray Bucky of molesting her 2.5-year-old son. Judy Johnson's 2-year-old son had a rash on his backside, rectal bleeding, and painful bowel movements. She took him to a pediatrician, and the doctors found something consistent with molestation, and Johnson immediately alerted police. Even though Mrs. Johnson's son couldn't identify Ray Bucky in a lineup, his home was searched. Even though no direct evidence was found, he was still arrested on September 7, 1983. The following day, a letter was sent to 200 parents of children who attended the school, informing them of Ray Bucky's arrest and asking their child if they had witnessed anything regarding the supposed crime. The letter also pleaded to parents to keep it confidential. Unsurprisingly, almost the entirety of the metropolitan area of Los Angeles knew of Ray Bucky and his alleged crime within the following weeks.
This case so sensational, so gruesome, was the accusation that 41 youngsters over a 6-year period had not just been sexually molested, but had also been forced to participate in satanic rites and pornographic pictures. There were also charges that to keep the children quiet, animals had been mutilated before their eyes. To add to the sensationalism, the 7 people arrested were not only pillars of the community, they were also responsible for the children's welfare.
Judy Johnson's reports of the preschool became more obscene and dramatic by the day. She talked of satanic rituals like forcing children to watch animals be beheaded or mutilated and then drink the blood. She also claimed that her son was forced to go to a satanic-like mass at a nearby church and was also forced to drink blood from a murdered baby, watch Ray and his mother have sex, have staples put in his ears and tongue, and that her son watched Ray fly. Judy Johnson was soon discovered to be a paranoid schizophrenic, which would explain her accounts. When she went to a different doctor about her son's stomach issues, he claimed it would be constipation or worms, but when she saw blood, she knew he was sodomized. She had accused her former husband as well as 3 health club employees of similar crimes with no proof. The prosecution withheld the evidence of her mental state from the defense, which may have stopped the case before it even started. Even with this, the accusations came rolling in and couldn't be stopped. With the growing number of accusations, the investigation was handed off to Key McFarlane, a consultant for the Children's Institute International, or CII, whose main goal was to find abused children and treat them. Key McFarlane and her interviews would be detrimental to this case. When she interviewed the children, she often asked them leading questions, and when the children eventually gave her an answer she wanted, she would praise them for it. This would motivate them to give her more answers like it, even if they were lies. By the March of '84, 384 children were diagnosed as sexually abused based on improper interviews.
You have interviews that will start off with a therapist asking a child whether they had ever played any naked games. At McMartin, this was a huge topic, was naked games. And the children initially say no. The therapist, though, didn't accept those answers. So then they repeat the question. And then they repeat it again. Eventually, the children realize that their interview is never going to be allowed to end until they start giving the interviewer the kind of answer that she wants to hear.
Afterwards, 150 out of the 384 children were medically examined by Dr. Astrid Hager, who was also a member of the CII, and found that 80% of the children she examined were molested. However, she didn't base this on physical evidence, but on the idea that the children's trauma should be validated. Any physical evidence she did find, which was scarring of the genitals and rectal area, would later be disproven by other doctors who commented that the scarring is commonly found in children with no history of sexual abuse. Despite this, Virginia, Peggy, Ray, Peggy Ann, and 3 other teachers, later known as the McMartin 7, would be convicted of over 200 counts of child sexual abuse. Their homes would be searched, but no evidence of the alleged nude photographs or of any child abuse in general was found. There was the idea that the children were brought through underground tunnels to secret rooms, so almost 50 parents decided to start digging to find the tunnels, but they could not find anything. It was later concluded that the children were referring to tunnels on the playground at the school. The defendants were also accused of bringing the children to a cemetery, forcing them to dig up coffins, and then the defendants would open these coffins and mutilate the bodies with knives. 2 years in, the prosecutors themselves doubted the defendants were guilty and eventually dropped the cases against most of the defendants and focused on Ray Buckey and his mother Peggy Buckey. The case had cost the state $4 million, and the trial hadn't even started yet. When the case did start, the main defense was that there was no evidence found. The preschool had been operating for decades without any such instance occurring, and the interview techniques were done incorrectly and promoted lies to convict the defendants. The prosecutors brought the children in to testify, but the defense not only discredited McFarland's interviewing, but also compared the children's testimonies with their preliminary hearings and showed their stories had changed to try to incriminate the defense. They also had a new medical expert, Dr. David Paul, who found the children to be normal and had no physical evidence of sexual abuse. As Ray Buckey and his mother were both in jail, Buckey had a cellmate, George Freeman, who was put on the stand and claimed Ray told him he had molested the children and that he had sent and hidden child pornography in Denmark. George Freeman had multiple felonies and previously confessed to perjury or lying under oath, which made his testimony invalid. The prosecution also brought in a woman, Barbara Goles, who had tried to flirt with Ray but failed as a way to convince the jury that Ray was only attracted to children. However, she later admitted on the stand that she had sexual relations with Ray but didn't want to admit it because she had a fiancé at the time. Not only did this ruin the idea that Ray was attracted to children, but she also commented that she saw him interact with children and said there was no possibility he could have sexually abused children.
You said some things that are not quite correct, and I'll grant it and I'll admit that.
Including Mr. Buckey, whether or not you molested children in this case?
No, Mr. Rubin, I know that I did not molest children ever in my life.
On November 2nd, 1989, most charges, including all charges against Peggy and Buckey, were acquitted, but 13 remained for Ray Buckey. Unfortunately, the jury was deadlocked on them. Ray was eventually retried on only 8 accounts of child molestation, and the jury was towards acquittal on 6 and was towards conviction on 1. Ray was never retried a third time, and all charges were dropped.
We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the very defendants not guilty.
The children were never allowed to say in their own words what happened to them, and to me that was crucial.
In the end, the case cost the state $15 million and is still the most expensive criminal case in the country. The McMartin Buckey family lost everything in the process: money, jobs, homes, and reputations, with Peggy spending 2 years in jail and Ray spending 5 years before he was released on a $1.5 million bail.
What do you want to do in your life?
I want to be left alone. I've seen what the news media can do to people in a crowded situation, and I don't want to be in LA, and I want to be left alone. Simple life.
Many child care workers were afraid to hug or touch the children for fear of something similar happening to them. Many child care companies had to shut down due to the drastic rise in liability insurance rates. From the mass hysteria, that stemmed from an initial letter sent to families to the horrible interview tactics, there were many lessons learned from the McMartin case.